So we got the valve body out of the way. Now let's look at what else we have here. There's a lot of case components that we have to be concerned with here, and we're showing you everything here. Basically, we have the C4 clutch seal that we need to remove, and this is going to be something that we're going to have to replace that's going to come with a kit. And then we have the internal harness components. We have the speed sensors, which are going to be connected right here. Again, we just have a little tab here that we're going to release. There's a locking mechanism. This little red piece right here is the locking mechanism. We pull that back, and that's going to give us access to pop that apart just like that. So that gets us out of the way. And then we have our speed sensors. We have our input speed sensor, we have our intermediate speed sensor, and our output speed sensor. Now, with that in mind, we have the same special torques that we're going to be using to remove those bolts. Now, these are going to be torque to yield bolts. 3 torque to yield bolts that we have to remove and replace. So our count is a total of 5 in this area. 5 torque to yield bolts that need to be removed and replaced. So you always want to remove torque to yield bolts by hand. Do not use power tools. You might end up with a nub and a broken bolt inside your case. And they're not fun to take out at all like that. Okay, so with the bolts out, at this point, all we have to do is get a small screwdriver again. And there's little clips that are securing this harness. All 3 of these sensors are connected together as one harness. So if you're replacing this part, you get all 3 for the price of one, whatever, however you want to look at it. They don't separate. So you're going to have to unclamp or just kind of release this harness from the case. They have little clips that go down here that keep this harness still. And you want to make sure, going back together, that you have these clips, because it's very important that this harness does not bounce around. If any harness on a speed sensor bounces around, it does have the chance of creating a dirty signal, which can give you some headaches that you don't want to try to diagnose. So again, here's the speed sensor harness. And again, it does attach to the harness that is at the case connector. Put that off to the side. And at this point, we pretty much removed everything out of the case, out of this portion of the case that we need to, except for the parking pawl mechanism here. If we're going to wash this case, or when we wash the case, we will have to remove this assembly, the internal mode switch, as well as the manual lever right here. Basically, we would have to remove that. Of course, we can use our wire cutters to pull this out pretty easily. It's not anything too crazy. So we get that. And also we got a pin here that's going to actually secure the internal mode switch. And we can pop this out really quickly here. But just keep in mind that when we are poking this out, we don't want to go straight down, because then we'll get this lodged in the case, and that's not going to be a very pretty situation. We could crack the case. Don't want that to happen. So we'll get a couple whacks and get it out of here. As a matter of fact, let's do this here. Get this down to the base level. Sorry. Okay, now we're down to the base level, and I'll poke it through. There we go. And then we pull that out. That's our manual lever. Notice what direction that it goes. So that's going to go up for the Corvette application. And we've got our internal mode switch, and we can put that off to the side. And here's the pin that secures the internal mode switch to the manual lever shaft. So again, it is tapered so that we have an opportunity to get that started. So it's a very user-friendly type mechanism. And again, here's the pin that's going to actually be driven into the case to secure the manual lever from moving in and out of the case. Okay? So we have those two pieces, put those off to the side. Now, we have to remove our parking linkage mechanism. That's going to be a 13 millimeter, 2 bolts. Okay, get that mechanism out. Basically, we see this, pretty much this is where the mechanism is going to be centered. It kind of centers it completely so we're not getting any distortion as far as when that rod comes in and out. So again, it's going to be something that you want to line up. It's kind of tight on the alignment when you're going together. So just to keep that in mind. And with the case in this position, we're all set to rotate this back to the vertical position to empty out the internal components. Now, with the transmission in the upright position, we're ready to take apart the rest of these components and empty out this case. Again, make sure that your O-ring is removed, your lockup O-ring. We're going to take the gasket off here. There's going to be a gasket. Of course, we're going to replace it. We kind of ripped it up there, taking it apart here. So again, you are going to want to replace that gasket. And here we have pretty much the pump bolts. This is what's going to secure this whole assembly and, you know, set our unit in place here. So again, we're going to go ahead and remove these bolts. It's going to be 13 millimeter head bolts. Okay, with those bolts removed, we don't even really need a puller on this because there's really not much going on here. We don't have an O-ring that's going to impede our progress as far as taking this off. All we have is sealing rings. So we get a pretty good grip on this and we can pull this right out. Okay, and this is our stator assembly. Now there is an early and there is a late version of this stator assembly, so just to keep that in mind. The early version, if we look at this, is going to have only one of these check ball capsules. The later version, the updated version, is going to have 2 check ball capsules. So just to keep that in mind, they added the second check ball capsule to ensure that we didn't have issues with the C1 clutch fill. There was concerns with the C1 clutch fill. This is added air bleed that they installed the second capsule for. Now, there's also going to be a thrust washer in this location here. Again, this is going to be something you want to be aware of when we're washing the parts and pieces. This is going to go up against our drive gear for our pump. So this is the drive gear. This is going to go up against the stator. So the shiny side is going to be facing up. This is going to be the side that's going to be facing towards the unit. So that's this thrust washer. There is another one for the cover side. However, I'll show you that real quick. The cover side O-ring is, well, thrust washer, is going to kind of be locked in position. So it doesn't want to go anywhere. I don't recommend trying to force it out. If it is broken or popped out, then these tabs are usually going to be gone and you have to replace it at that point in time. But make sure it is there. And if it is there, you can wash it. It's not going anywhere.